2022 has come to an end, and as you're listening to this, we're in the second day of 23, and this makes it so weird to say my 35th year has officially started, and I am depressed by that statement. Hello, my name is William James, I'm the host of The Bald Book Geek. What has this year been like? I think finally severing ties with BookTube completely was one of the big things for me. And for the first time in years, my channel grew. And that was bizarre to see. I still can't explain it. My Rings of Power videos got caught in the algorithm. And it's been amazing. Thank you. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. All the people that have stuck around. I knew there would be some die-off once the hype, or I say hype, there was no hype for that show other than the videos about it were more entertaining. But it's been a ride, and I want to say thank you all. You don't know what it means to me. In like the big scheme of things, you have no clue what it means to me. Now, Rings of Power, the destruction of Western culture and fantasy, and it has been quite an interesting thing to watch kind of the cultural Marxists come in and try and obliterate everything that they review as remotely problematic. I have wine, by the way, as I record this, so forgive me if I sound a little bit tiddled. It's been interesting just watching it. The shill accounts, the defenders. I mean, The Witcher was terrible. The Witcher prequel was absolutely dire. The sort of war against Henry Cavill because, oh my god, he's a gamer. You know, just absolutely reductive content. And comments made by morons. And my favourite little troll on Twitter, who I won't name, but he knows who he is. Hello, because I know you're going to watch this. The sheer anger of people defending Rings of Power is funny, because they're trying to kind of gaslight history, and just watching that happen, like, I'm old enough to be there when the films came out. I remember the concern and worry, but Peter Jackson proved us wrong. Rings of Power proved us right, and there is a massive difference there. There has been some good TV, though. The House of the Dragon was absolutely spectacular. I loved every second of it, despite some clumsy moments. Good storytelling. I can forgive a little bit of politics and a little bit of agenda if the storytelling comes first. And that's ultimately it. What else has happened? Oh god. Just this kind of weird bubble of this year. A lot of stuff has happened in the background personally. A lot of just stuff, for want of a better word. I feel like this year has flown past. We've had weird weather, and a day in UK temperature it hit 40 in some parts of the UK. I don't know what that translates to in American, but it's hot. And in a country where your house is designed to keep heat in is not a fun experience. Seriously, my house, most British homes, are designed to be very firmly insulated and stay warm. So, my kitchen hit the grand total of 45, and I know none of you care about this, but when your floor is peeling up because of the heat, you know there's a problem. And just other stuff that's happened, sort of this culture war crap that keeps coming up. I don't think it's a culture war. I agree with Clownfish TV on that. It's more destruction of culture. But I think seeing the Lord of the Rings fandom united, whether they like the Peter Jackson movies, whether they're purists to the books, they united against the Rings of Power. And that's been an amazing thing to witness. And, wow. You know, the gift that no one wanted but keeps giving. And they're doubling down on the shallow diversity of Season 2. I mean, people defend the show constantly. We're like, well, they don't have the rights to the Silmarillion. Yes, but they have the rights to the appendices, and they didn't even use that. Like, they. The defenders are funny because they keep coming out with these sort of arguments that really are not reductive. I keep seeing Robert E. Howard mentioned in my comments on anything Rings of Power lately, and that's funny because, yes, the Conan film with Arnold Schwarzenegger was a very loose adaptation of the Conan story. But unlike that, you can do a loose adaptation and it be good. Robert E. Howard is horribly underrated on screen, and I absolutely adore his work. I own huge volumes of his work because trying to get nice singular volumes of his stuff just does not exist, and I wish a publisher would jump on that, like, now. Let's create something. Oh, I got a subscription. I know, this is Classics Collection, these beautiful hardbound classics, bi-weekly, and I'm loving them. Because my old classic novels collection are like school grade, disintegrating things that they're just kind of disintegrating. I also got a new phone, which I have a love-hate relationship with. It's the new iPhone. Well, I say new, it's iPhone 13. Um, Facial recognition ID is great, but my muscle memory is so tuned into the iPhone SE, it's absolutely frustrating. Watching people freak out about Twitter, that's been hilarious. Watching people cry on social media. I mean, there's like a whole thing of just hilariousness starting, and the virtue signaling is interesting. I do think the pushback on culture has started, and I firmly agree there is two sides of gatekeeping, a positive and a negative. But sometimes gatekeeping is good, and watching sort of the normies come into things where they're super offended over certain words and phrases in Dungeons and Dragons, which is just redundant at best. Controversial opinion, I'm not a fan of Critical Role. I know, I absolutely know that's a really weird statement to make, and I probably get cancelled for it at some point, but I don't like Critical Role. Partly because of the Matt Mercer effect. That's kind of obliterated a lot of the fun of D&D, where it's sort of been taken over by Revenge of the Nerds drama geeks, rather than actual D&D players, and people that don't engage with that content. Watching comic book pros melt, and I do agree, as much as there are people I don't like in the comic book industry, regardless whether I agree with your work, like your work, or think you're a decent human being, you should get paid. Then we've got the Amber Heard Johnny Depp stuff, which is amazing to see. And sort of the people defending Amber Heard, the greatest human being that ever lived, who is a DA against men, but don't forget, anything against men is okay. It's funny to watch, and as an onlooker, watching people, journalists, docs people like the Umbrella Guy or Libs of TikTok and so on, it's so funny. And I think it's just not washing with people anymore. I think people have gone, well, whatever, go away, we don't care anymore. And that's ultimately the thing here. I just think we're hitting a standpoint creatively where if you're truly creative, don't create work for the mind-numbing Twitterati, because they only care if it ticks boxes. They don't care if it does anything else. That's what it is. They want a box ticked rather than decent storytelling, rather than good art. I mean, rather than anything creative. And this whole notion that all art is political, that seems to be a thing now. And these are coming from art students. I mean, what are these universities teaching you? No, not all art is political. Sometimes art exists purely for the sake of art. Sometimes art exists purely for the sake of beauty. And that kind of gets lost on these numbnuts. It really does at this point. It's just bizarre to witness. And I think people are sick of things they love being destroyed. by people that don't care about them. You know, they intentionally hire people that aren't fans. Look at The Witcher. They hired people that openly mock the source material, the books, the games. They openly mock it because it doesn't tick their boxes. And these are not the people you need to be hiring in your work. Simple. And just watching all of this happen and realizing that when you see the self-insert, air quote, strong female character on screen, Galadriel looking at you, you realize that it's just a self-insert for one of the writers, and that's becoming, and self-insertion is fine, but there are writers where you think, if this is your self-insert character, no wonder you're divorced. Like, it's just bizarre, isn't it? And my interactions with booktubers has been even funnier. You just realise how fake everyone is, I suppose. It's just weird looking back at 2022. And the second I shifted away from book content is the second people are interested. I know this is rambling, I'm sorry. The second people are interested in my work. And that's kind of sad, really. It is. And BookTube is very selective over who it will support and who it won't support. You have to fit into them to sit at the call table. And ultimately, that's a problem. It's not an open space. The community is very small, and they predominantly make videos for each other. But hey-ho, onwards and upwards. There's a lot more coming. And just... maybe these companies need to realize, I know I'm off on a tangent again, maybe these companies need to realize that if you want to create something that fans of the product will spend money on, maybe actually adapting the product, maybe actually giving fans what they want, rather than thinking diversity, representation, modernity, and that's all well and good, but if it's forced, fake, stereotyping, there's like a whole list of things, and it just gets really old really fast. Like, most of these people in charge of these companies are ridiculous, and I do feel like we're watching the collapse of the film industry as well. Marvel haven't produced anything any good in years. I mean, She-Hulk was ghastly, and then the twerking scene is where I just cried with laughter. Like, that's a meme. And now, whenever I think of She-Hulk, I think of a single female lawyer from Futurama. Just, you know, it's bizarre, and it's toxic, and it's a whole list of things. And ultimately, I feel like now we're at that point where the pushback has started, and we're going to see that. People aren't spending their money anymore because people have less money. That's a whole rant that doesn't belong on this channel. I'm not going to get too much into politics, but, you know, when people clap about politicians, any of them, it's like, that's the same energy as thinking the hooker likes you. It's bizarre, isn't it? Anyway, tell me what you think in the comments below. How was your 2023? And how was everything? Because it's been a ride. Well, no, sorry, 2022. I know. Wine. I've had lots of wine. And, but yeah, I hope your 23 is amazing. And everyone watching, everyone here, I wish you a brilliant and happy new year. Enjoy it. And I hope it's great for you guys.